Hi, everyone. Kyle and Keela here from Decise. It's nice to visit with everybody again. Today, we want to talk about one of the most polarizing digital assets, and that is NFTs. Okay, so you probably fit into a category of you love it, or you don't care, or you hate it. Keela, where do you fall on that spectrum?
So I'm probably moving from don't care into the love them. The more and more that I'm
Okay,
interacting and engaging with them NFTs and starting to see like the new ways that they're going to be used going forward.
nice. I think I'm pretty squarely in the love it category. Um, I'll splash on the screen here is an NFT that we own. And we think they're pretty cool. But today we want to talk about, of course, we want to talk about NFTs in the scope of conducting a financial audit because NFTs are a digital asset class that a lot of hedge funds, a lot of investment companies, more and more people are starting to own, and they have some unique implications in terms of valuation. And so, let's just start with what is an NFT? Let's start there.
Yeah, an NFT is a non-fungible token. It's an acronym. And non-fungible means that the two things aren't the same. And so like if you're thinking about like regular currency, if you have a dollar and I have a dollar, we both have a dollar. And if we say, hey, let's trade dollars, and we give each other our dollars, we still both have a dollar at the end of the day. That was fungible. So currency, fungible. Non-fungible tokens mean if you have an NFT and if I have an NFT and we switch NFTs, we now have different things that are probably of different value, unless they just happen to be valued at the exact same amount. They're two different, unique things.
Well, one thing I think we could agree on for sure right away is NFT has to be like the worst acronym ever to describe these.
I agree. Like non-fungible token, like you kind of like go back in your memory bank, like, no, what is fungible again? And absolutely. And the thing is, um, they're starting to have a connotation now. Most people, when you hear non-fungible token or NFT, you think of like a crypto kitty or an ape, a picture of an ape. That is how most people have experienced an NFT to date. But the thing is, that is not what all NFTs are. NFTs are essentially a unique digital identity that is assigned to a thing. And the thing may be digital, the thing or the benefits could actually be IRL in real life. But the thing is, it's a unique identifier that can now be used in the digital world for various different things. And so, probably the most straightforward use case is to have a piece of digital art assigned a non fungible token. And so, therefore, now you can buy it digitally or trade it digitally. But that same concept can actually be applied for an NFT, a digital identity. It can be applied in so many different ways. And so we'll continue to see more and more uses of NFTs.
Well, and I'll add to that too, in the context of like a hedge fund or an investment company, NFTs sometimes come with other off-chain perks in real life. Of course, as you said, there's memberships for like DAOs, there's governance or voting rights. And increasingly too, we see NFTs that entitle the holder to royalty payments of the success of future generations of the NFT, which essentially make them attractive digital assets to hold both in the short term as well as in the long term.
Absolutely. But the problem that comes along with that, though, right, is okay, so you're just telling me that an NFT is a unique thing. All right. But I'm an auditor or I need this audited. How can you tell me what it's worth if it's unique from everything else?
Yeah, well, fortunately, it's not as hard as like placing a value on the Mona Lisa or something. The idea of like how do you place the value on art is a tough question, but we want to talk about some of the techniques that can be used to reasonably place a market value on an NFT that's held in a portfolio. Cool. So let's start with kind of the idea of classification. So maybe talk about the different categories of classification that would be
Yeah.
useful for establishing before you embark on an audit.
Yeah. So most of the time, a digital asset, so that could include NFTs. So something that is, created, issued, tracked, maintained on a blockchain. Most of the time, that is not going to be considered cash. And I'm mostly referring to US based GAAP right now. But most of the time, it is not considered cash. It's considered an intangible, indefinite asset. And so for a lot of organizations, any of your digital assets are going to fall into that category. There are a few exceptions. If your organization, if you're miners and you actually are creating cryptocurrencies or creating like NFTs, there is a possibility that you could have your NFTs or your assets be classified as investments, or I'm sorry, as inventory. And then the
Mhm.
other is if you are an investment firm, then your digital assets can sometimes be classified as investments. But I would say the vast majority of time, you're going to be looking at that intangible asset. And so, what comes along with that for intangible assets, whatever you buy it at, that's going to be considered the value of that asset. Um, like with NFTs, a lot of times people buy them because the value of them goes up, and then they want to sell them later and make money. But because it's an intangible asset on your books, you're not able to recognize the gains until you actually sell the asset. So there can be a downside or a plus. You can work this different ways, right? But you can recognize loss if there's an impairment event, an impairment test, and it does, show that there is a loss in market value based on like a principal market. Then you could recognize that loss.
So, like for normal coins, it's a little bit easier. If there's an abundant supply and there's a ton of trading activity, you have really good market proxies to be able to say, I can liquidate this asset right now for this price. Or
Mm-hmm.
in the spirit of valuation, you could say, as of end of year last year, we know that that coin was trading at this price. So we have pretty high confidence that there's a liquid market available right now. But NFTs are not going to fit into that same category.
No.
You know, but fortunately, in because the NFTs are on the blockchain, we are able to look at and get some pretty good proxy information. So for most NFTs, we'll be able to go and we'll look at the block explorers and we can see that there's a price floor. So we know what the minimum value of NFTs that are trading at that are similar. We know the volume and we know the velocity. So when it comes to determining if that asset can be liquidated, we reasonably can understand the economics of how long would it take to sell it, how much would it be sold for, with some exceptions depending on if it's a truly unique NFT. But largely, there's some decent proxies to get us started in valuation. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree with that. And so, for some NFTs that are being issued, there's actually not just one. Now, while each one will have a unique idea, unique NFT, you can actually issue more than one. Just like an artist could paint the same painting 4 or 5 times, they're each unique, but they're very, very similar and could be valued very similarly. And so, for those, it's a little bit easier to have, a market and kind of understand the value and maybe see what they're trading at. But just like you were saying there, Kyle, is that, for the instances where there really is one, you're looking for similarity, and there are different marketplaces, so you can look at historical values in some instance. But even if there isn't a marketplace that has tracked historical values, that is a benefit of NFTs and blockchain, is the fact that it's a distributed public ledger. For the vast majority of NFTs, the ones that are actually on a public blockchain. Now, there are private blockchains and there's permission blockchains,
Sure.
and so if we're talking about an NFT in one of those types, you're going to have to be a part, permissioned in or a part of that private blockchain as a node to be able to extract that information. It wouldn't be made just publicly available. But, a lot of the things, a lot of the use cases or instances, you're going to be talking about a public blockchain.
Well, and of course, too, the benefits of the blockchain is we can see when the NFT was purchased. We can see what wallet is currently holding the NFT.
Hmm.
And so we've got some pretty good foundational information in terms of validating, verifying that the NFT exists and it's being held properly, as well as some proxying information to determine the principal market. But let's talk a little bit about, we see more and more NFTs being used for off-chain perks and benefits. Do
Hmm.
you want to talk about a few of those examples and maybe how those factor into determining the market value?
Absolutely. So, like Board Ape Yacht Club, right? Yes, it's apes, but a lot of the real value that comes along with owning one of those NFTs is being a part of the club. There's events, there's all these, sorts of things that come along with holding that NFT. And what we're seeing is not only that associated with digital art, but you're also starting to see that for a lot of other use cases like access to exclusive clubs or events or even concerts. Like, and it becomes a concert ticket to be able to get in. I'm seeing them around wine clubs. Yes, please. And a lot of different ways to be able to have a unique identifier that's going to be able to get you into an event, into a club, be able to access something, and then probably we'll continue to see more sophisticated uses, and those can be associated to like decentralized apps, being able to access those apps, being able to access different perks or assets that could be a part of the app. You're going to see this in Web3, metaverse use cases, how it's an identity or how it's going to be able to let you access different environments or be able to have different, virtual assets as well. So there's a lot of use cases, and most of us are really just kind of on the surface of what NFTs can do.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the good thing with what you just described there is determining market value of those perks is doable as well for the most part. I mean, we get into some edge cases, but largely tickets have face value, membership and perks have face value, and so those are important inputs to be able to determine the overall market value of the NFT. But it's worth a minute to just highlight the risks. It's riskier when these perks are promised, but other than a promise, there's really no guarantee. And so we would say, if the perks are actually written into a smart contract that can be verified, that's great. When those perks can't be written into a contract, that's where you kind of hear the term a rug pull. And that does occasionally happen with NFTs. Like, we're going to build an NFT and we're going to release it. And it's going to be in a, for a musician, maybe, right, exclusive backstage passes to my concert, great. Except I never, run the concert, or when you get there, you can't even get to somebody to show them the NFT. And so there's definitely some risk to certainty of some of these perks and rewards as well. And so in the absence of a smart contract, I think the risk level goes up, and that potentially could impair the value of the NFT.
Yeah, it absolutely could. And then even if something is in a smart contract, so even if those perks and rewards are in a smart contract, there's also some risk associated with the smart contract itself to make sure that it's written in a way that there aren't loopholes, it can't be exploited, those types of things. An example is some NFTs can generate royalties. Um, and it's an interesting,
Mm-hmm.
great model. And it can be put into a smart contract, meaning if I own, whichever wallet has this NFT that's in it, it can earn based on various triggers royalties. Or if there's a combination of NFTs or a combination of things inside of a wallet, it can trigger different events. But what you also want to make sure is that it's when it's in the smart contract, that the language, which is actually a programming language, is how these smart contracts are written. It's not written like a legal agreement, as we're used to
Right.
signing legal
Yep.
documents today. It's actually written as a program with programming code, and you want to make sure that that code is actually saying what you think is supposed to happen to be able to get the royalty or whatever the benefit may be.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we'll talk more about smart contracts and smart contract auditing in another video. But I mean, at the end of the day, what we're after here is not to cast judgment about whether we think the NFT art is cool or not,
We do,
whether we think
but it's
NFTs
cool.
are cool or not. But providing a structured framework for how we go through a process to determine what is the market value of this asset sitting on a balance sheet, and this is tough. It's tough, and it's complex, and getting more complex. And so, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Um, no, I think I just echo what you said. It can be tough. It can be complex. There's a lot of things to think about around NFTs, and so, but it's doable. Don't be overly intimidated. And if you need a hand, that's actually one of the things that Decisive can do is help you figure this all out. So we would love to be able to
Yep.
help you.
Yep. We love this kind of work, and you can find us at decisive.io. Come say hi. Bye, everybody.
Bye.